Hi, welcome to the BYU-Idaho Tutoring Center videos. Today we're going to be talking about the multiplication and addition rules. More specifically, we're going to be doing some practice problems, some genetics problems, so that we can better use these rules to solve these. So if you remember, we use the laws of probability to solve genetics problems. Everything we find today is going to be a probability, the likelihood of something happening. It's not going to be the exact number. Experiments with lots and lots of trials have shown that our numbers tend to be right on, but again, it's probability. There's always random chance that can influence that. So we have two rules that we use with probability. One is the multiplication rule and one is the addition. We use the multiplication rule when we hear the word and. We're dealing with things that involve and. We use the addition rule when we're dealing with or. So what does that really mean? Well, an example is if you were asked to find the probability of having trait 1 and trait 2, then you need to multiply the probability of having trait 1 by the probability of having trait 2. If you're asked to find the probability of having trait 1 or trait 2, then you need to add the probability of having trait 1 to the probability of having trait 2. So that may not be totally clear yet. So let's do some practice problems so we get really comfortable doing these. And if we see them on a test, we'll say, yes, we can do it, and we'll get them all right and be good to go. So remember, perfect practice makes perfect. So in our first example, we're going to cross this individual that has genotype big A, big B, big C, little c, with an individual that has the genotype big A, little b, big C, little c. And the question asks, what is the probability that the offspring will resemble the first parent? Now, the first thing I want to point out is that the question says resemble. That is a key word to solving this. When we say resemble, we're talking about phenotype. So they don't tell us what each of these genes or alleles code for, but pretend that the A alleles code for hair color, and the B alleles code for eye color, and the C alleles code for whether or not, what type of ear you have, whether it's attached or not. And so they want to know what is the probability that offspring will have the same hair color, the same eye color, and the same ear type as this parent. And so we're going to be dealing with phenotypes, not genotypes. But let's not get too caught up in that first. Let's first just do some Punnett squares. So remember, whenever we're dealing with something that has more than one character that we're dealing with, multiple traits, to separate them out, because if you try to do one giant Punnett square, it's going to get really messy and confusing, and it's just gross. So skip all that nastiness and just do it for each individual one. So cross your A's with your A's, your B's with your B's, and your C's with your C's. So let's do that really fast. Remember, you just drop everything down. Oh, big A, big A, big A, big A, big A, little a, big A, little a. All right? Let's do that again. Big B, little b, big B, little b, big B, little b, big B, little b. Okay, and if we do it one more time, we're going to have big C, big C, big C, little c, little c, little c, big C, little c. So that's pretty straightforward, not too difficult. So now comes the hard part. We want to find the probability of the offspring resembling the first parent. So the first parent, the phenotype for this, if we're assuming traditional Mendelian genetics, in order to get the phenotype for this, we can either have homozygous dominant, like this one is, or heterozygous individual. For example, pretend that big A codes for brown hair. And the dominant allele is the big A that designates brown hair, and the recessive allele is little a that designates blonde hair. So whether we have big A, little a, or big A, big K, we're going to have brown hair either way. And so to resemble the first parent, any of these genotypes will result in the same phenotype as this parent. So in this case, we're asking what is the probability of having the phenotype big A, or big A, little a. So because we use that word or, we're going to add them up. So we have our 1/2 for the big A's, and we're going to add it to the 1/2 for little a's, and we get 1. So that's nice and simple. We're going to be doing the same thing down here. What's the probability of having big B, little b, well that's actually all we have, or big B, big B. And so there's 0% that we're going to have big B, and there's 1 of this, and so we're going to add them together, and we're also going to get 1. Pretty simple so far. And then for the last one, we want to know the probability of having big C, or big C, little c. And so notice again, because these all are either, all of these are going to be forming the same phenotype because they're either heterozygous or homozygous dominant. So the probability for this one is 1/4, and the probability for this one is 1/2, which you can see right here, 2 out of 4 of them and 1 out of 4 of them. So when you add that together, it's 3/4. Okay, but we're not done. We have to find the probability the offspring will resemble the first. So we want to know what's the probability that they will have the dominant trait, this dominant trait, and this dominant trait, and this dominant trait. And so because we're dealing with and, we're going to multiply all of these individual probabilities by each other. When you multiply 1 by 1 by 3/4, you get 3/4. And that is our final answer. So that wasn't too terribly awful. So just remember, if we're talking about dealing with something that has to do with phenotypes, we're probably going to be having to use or and. But if we're just kind of sticking to genotypes, it's going to be a little bit easier, and we're going to mostly be dealing with and. Sometimes you might have a problem that asks you the probability of getting homozygous for all traits. You're going to have to use or again with that type of thing because, see, both of these are homozygous. One's homozygous dominant and one's homozygous recessive. So in this case, we'd have to add these two together to get 1/2. Let's do one more practice problem. This one's a word problem, something that everybody hates. A lot of people see these and they shy away and they freak out. But we're going to solve it, and we're going to show that we can conquer these problems. They're not difficult. We can overcome. So the problem says 2 true breeding pea plants are crossed. Red axil flowers, a flower that has red axil flowers is crossed with one that has white terminal flowers. The F1 individuals all have red axil flowers. We then cross the F1 individuals and we form 1,000 F2 individuals. And the question asks how many would have red terminal flowers. So there's a lot going on here. First thing I want to point out is that we have 2 true breeding plants. So because they tell us it's true breeding, we know that both of the plants are going to be homozygous for the trait. So now we have to decide which one is the dominant and which one is the recessive trait. And we're dealing with 2 different traits. We're dealing with the flower position, axil or terminal, and the color, red or white. So because when we cross the F1 individuals, they're all red axil, we know that the dominant is the red in the axil. So we're going to use big R to represent the color, or R's to represent the color. So this individual was big R, big R. Because axil is also dominant, we're going to use A's for that. And it was crossed with a little r, little a, little a. And so when we cross those, if you do out the Punnett square, which we're not going to do, we would get 100% big R, big A, little a. And that would have red axil flowers, which is what we found right here. So we're good there. Now the problem is asking us to cross big R, big A, little a, with big R, big A, little a. So we're going to set up our 2 Punnett squares again because we're only dealing with 2 different traits. Remember always to separate them. Sorry, this is not perfectly straight. So we're going to set up our R right here, and then these R's here. Big A, little a, big A, little a. So now we're just going to bring everything down. Big R, big R, big R, little r, big R, little r, little r, little r. Same thing here. Big A, big A, big A, little a, big A, little a, little a, little a. Sounds kind of funny. Now, we need to look at our question again. So we want to know how many would have red terminal flowers. And so essentially, even though it doesn't say it directly, we want to know how many will have red and terminal flowers, right? And so we need to find the probability of having red and multiply it by the probability of having terminal. So we're going to have some sort of multiplication down here. So let's get ready for that. So first we have to find the probability of having red flowers. Now, because it says red, we're dealing with phenotypes again, right? If it said of having a homozygous dominant genotype or heterozygous, then we would be dealing with genotypes. We're not. And so how can we get red flowers? Well, because red is the dominant allele, we can have a big R, little r, or a big R, big R, and they both give us red flowers. So either of those genotypes will give us red flowers. So we're going to look for the probability of having big R, or big R, little r. So we're dealing with an R. So what's the probability of having big R? Well, there's only one of those, so it's 1/4. And what's the probability of having big R, little r? 1/2. So we're going to add those two together because we want OR. And so now we're going to have a 3/4 probability of having red flowers. Now let's kind of do a similar thing for the flower position. So it's terminal. So what's the only way that we can get a terminal position? Well, we have to have little a, because it's recessive, right? And so there's only a 1 in 4 probability of having terminal. And so now we have to multiply these individual probabilities by each other to get the overall probability of having red and terminal flowers. So when we do this, we get 3/16. Now, is that our final answer? No. Look back at the question. Always make sure you read the question carefully, because a lot of students will, if it's a write-on, will just write this and only get partial credit because they didn't answer the full question. The question asks, out of 1,000, how many would have red and terminal? So now we need to apply this number to 1,000. So we can just set up a really easy proportion. If we have 3 out of 16, we have 1,000 total. How many out of 1,000 will have it? So you just cross multiply. What's 3,000 divided by 16? Take out your calculator. 3,000 divided by 16 is 187.5 to be exact. If this was a multiple choice, you might be required to round it up, and so it probably will have some sort of answer that's like 190, because you can't really have half a flower anyway, and this is probability, so it's give or take. So we can say about 190 out of 1,000 of the F2 individuals will have red terminal flowers. So that is all for today. Get online, find some more practice problems, just keep working these, because the more you practice it and the more you are getting these things right, the better you'll be at it, and the time you get to a test, it's not going to be scary or hard at all. You'll be ready to get all these questions right and you'll do great. Thank you so much for watching and have a fantastic day.